Hello and welcome to Green Queens, the perfect podcast for imperfect environmentalists. You are joined, as ever, by myself, Imogen Bogle, and by the wonderful, freshly back from her holiday, Abby Dewhurst.
Yay! And freshly back from my holiday in a very big week for the UK because it is London Marathon week and the sun is shining.
The sun is shining, and I have seen a lot of people on Instagram being like, we like the sun, we're conscious of the temperature, we're very nervous, people are starting to taper. I am really enjoying how vicariously I'm experiencing their marathon. Stressful, exciting, all the different emotions.
I know, but I really do love this time of year in the UK when the weather starts to turn, the days get longer, we get a bit more time in the morning and in the evening, and you do just see so many more people out and about, like enjoying their runs. Because I feel like particularly if you are training towards something, you don't have the luxury of saying, it's raining today, I'm probably not going to go for a run. And so I've seen people absolutely grit their teeth and bear it this January and February when the weather's been so rubbish. So it's truly joyous to see people pounding the streets and having a great time, hopefully, or potentially not in the run up to training for something. But there's quite a few people that I know that are doing the marathon this year.
And it is amazing how I think since I was, when I probably started running, maybe like in earnest, like 15 years ago, running was kind of the thing done by people who liked running, not sort of a widely done thing. And if you did a marathon, people were like, oh my God, that's insane. That's incredible. And now if you tell people you're doing a marathon, they're like, okay, and what time? Was it sub 4?
I know.
And you're like, bloody hell, when did we all get so insanely into running?
Yeah, it's all the spongy shoes. They're speeding people up. Have you done London Marathon before? You've done a lot of running.
Not done London, but done a few, well, one ultra marathon, couple of marathons, and I've got a big one coming up. But you have done the London Marathon.
So I did the London Marathon 10 years ago this year, back in 2016. I can't believe that was 10 years ago. That is mental. But again, like you say, very much before it was cool to do any form of running, but particularly to do a marathon or London Marathon. Like no one cared what you were wearing. The running gear back then was very functional. It was just a really different experience. And I did it all by myself. I did all my training by myself. I was so young and naive. And to be honest, the only reason I did it is that I mentioned it one day and my dad went, oh, Abby, you can't just run a marathon. And then I literally entered the ballot that night, or I got a charity place, I think, and was like, well, I have to prove my dad wrong now. So I'm not a natural runner, but I'd really like to do it again, I think. Perhaps not yet.
I'm a big advocate of any sporting event. It doesn't need to be a marathon. It could be a 5K, it could be a park run. But it is one of those things where you just come together and see the joy that can happen when you bring a community together and that community vying for each other's success. And it is a perfect segue to talk about today's guest, because we are going to be joined by Kate Chapman, who is leading sustainability for TCS London Marathon events. She's absolutely incredible. And I think if you're looking for a little bit of practical advice about how to make big events more sustainable, but B, just to have your faith restored in humanity, this podcast is for you.
It definitely is. And I think what's nice is that they are doing so many amazing things. And Kate has sort of single-handedly managed to transform the entire output of that marathon over the last however many years. But it's never the most widely spoken about thing when it comes to sport, is it? Like the main goal and the main aim of London Marathon is for people to run a marathon. It's not to talk about the fact that this event is actually one of the leaders in terms of sustainability around the world. And so these things often go very unnoticed. And, that isn't the number one thing that you'll leave if you do go to London, or if you see the marathon on the TV this weekend. You won't leave with all of that information. So it's so nice to be able to shine a spotlight on it. And also then for people to have those little nuggets of like, oh my God, did you know? I heard this in a podcast or whatever it may be. And I just feel like I really, really quickly want to say, after we stopped recording, because we have had this conversation with Kate now, and it was so wonderful, and she's just a legend for talking to us in the week in the run up to the London Marathon. But she mentioned something after we stopped recording that is just so worth celebrating, and a really good reminder, I think, for everybody who's maybe getting swept up a little bit in the running bug and thinking, oh, but I need new shoes and I need a new outfit and I need a little vest that I can put lots of different things in. You don't. because there are people called the Ever Presents who have ran every single London Marathon since 1981. And there is a guy called Mark who will be running the marathon this Sunday. And he's going to be doing it wearing the same jacket that he got from the 1981, the first ever London Marathon. So it just goes to show that if you can run a marathon in a jacket that is that many years old, then you definitely don't need a new snazzy top to run 1K, 5K, 10K, a marathon, full stop.
Whilst I am in no way going to pretend that I am as impressive as Mark, who's been running marathons for the past 45 years,
Well done.
I do think if you start wearing the same kit for particular races, you become a little bit superstitious about it. And I have this
Mm.
one pair of leggings, which I kid you not, they are age 11 to 12, firstly. I bought them 15 years ago. They probably are so embedded with stink, it's unreal. They were £7, and I have worn them for like most major races that I've done, and I cannot bring myself to get rid of them. However, I would say whilst I've largely stayed the same size, my bum has increased in size, and therefore how see-through they are on the bum, there's a question mark there.
Do you know
But
what? It's a great little dangle of carrot to let you be the leader in the race. So we can all have a little look at your tushy as you're running.
well, the thing is, and I can't see it, so I don't know how bad it is. But okay, but yes, you don't need the fanciest kit in the world, a pair of trainers, a pair of shorts, a sports bra,
Yeah,
golden. Yeah.
absolutely golden. Although I don't think Mark's running it in a sports bra this weekend.
You never know. This could be the year.
Bra on, bum out in Imogen's case.
Well,
Right.
on that note,
Yeah.
let's hand over to Kate, who has somehow managed to squeeze us in just moments before she heads to the London Marathon.
Yeah. And for anybody running, good luck.
Well, Kate, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this morning. Abby and I are both utterly shocked that you've said yes to recording today, because it is very worth noting that we're recording this on Thursday, the 23rd of April. The London Marathon is this weekend. You are an exceptionally busy woman. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I mean, at this point, we should have everything sorted and organised. It's a little bit late now if things aren't ready to go. So yeah, everything is in place. The running show is it opened yesterday, so I think we had about 15,000 participants came and picked up their bibs and came around the show yesterday, along with kind of thousands of other people who, because it's open to the public. So yeah, that's all up. We've got a sustainability stand and various activations and things happening there. So yeah, it's kind of it's all happening now. It's too late to be doing anything apart from some very minor last minute details.
Oh, well, we're absolutely thrilled to be
Yeah.
talking with you. And in researching this podcast, it was, I don't know, I can't describe the sort of warmth and fluffy feeling I had in sort of reading about the role of the London Marathon, its origins, what it should represent. And I wonder, for the benefit of the listeners, if you could give us a bit of a whistle-stop tour as to the London Marathon's history and the values that it's sort of founded on.
Sure, yeah. So London Marathon was founded in 1981, and it was founded by two guys, Chris Braysher and John Disley, and they had seen what a marathon had done, particularly in New York, but to bring the community together above all else, and they wanted to bring that to London. And when you join London Marathon, we kind of get this sort of history of it because our chief exec of London Marathon events is Hugh Braysher, who's Chris Braysher's son, and so the kind of, I suppose, the DNA of the marathon is still very much kind of present, and they John and Chris came up with some principles upon which the marathon was founded, and one of them was to bring happiness to a troubled world. And another one is to kind of show what humanity can do, kind of, and to show the best of humanity. And those are, yeah, some incredible founding principles that it's built on. And I think they absolutely still very much present today. If people have been out on the streets of London, been to see the London Marathon, you'll see that London undergoes something of a personality transformation on that day. It's a little bit like that Olympic spirit that London had for those few weeks back in 2012, where everyone is talking to each other, everyone is happy, they're all, everyone is just kind of, yeah, there's a party and carnival atmosphere, and every kind of ounce of energy is directed to those amazing people participating in the marathon and willing them on, and all of the reasons why they're running. And there are so many reasons why people do this. It's just, yeah, it's extraordinary. There is an energy there that is just unparalleled, I think.
Mm.
That so is. And I feel like anybody that has been as a spectator, as a participant, or as somebody that's maybe volunteered or worked at the event, as you were saying those words, like the feeling that I had in my chest was absolutely exactly all of those things that it encompassed. I did run the marathon 10 years ago, actually. I did sort of tell myself that maybe I'll do it again 10 years on, but that's too late. That didn't happen. That's this
Yeah,
year, maybe
'cause
next year. And I did exactly. I was actually there last year as well with the Green Runners, part of the sustainability initiative that you guys do. I was there, as you know, like covering some of the stuff for social media and reporting on it. And again, that energy was just, it kind of felt more exciting, I think, particularly being in that Green Runner start zone. Not only were people there obviously about to run a marathon, but I feel like there was so much positive energy because of the fact that they had been allowed to make that extra positive green choice. So I don't know, the vibe in all the start zones is probably the same, but it felt even more fun and even more positive in the Green Runner start zone. So is that something that you're bringing back? Is that like, that's in for good now, the Green
Yeah,
Runners?
so that's our Team Green cohort. And yeah, well, last year we introduced it, and we opened it up to 5,000 participants. But this year we've upped that to 7,500, and we made that option available sort of towards the end of January, and within a week, all those places are gone. So for everyone that was registered to run and had accepted their place, they could choose whether they wanted to join Team Green. And so, yeah, all of those places went really, really quickly. So, which we're really delighted about. And it just means,
And for anybody that
yeah, I
doesn't
was going
know,
to say, it means if you join Team Green,
yeah.
what you're doing is you are committing to arriving at the start without a bag, which doesn't sound like a massive deal, but the way that it would normally work is that the marathon starts in Greenwich and it finishes on the Mall. So what we people come to the start with a load of stuff. We give them a kit bag, which is made from sugarcane, but you know it is still a piece, an item that we give to them. And they would put their personal items in there, and then they get loaded on some lorries, which then drive across London to the Mall. And we're trying to reduce the number of vehicles that we're using. So not everybody wants to run with a bag, and we kind of offer people the option to drop their bag off at the finish the day before using public transport or on a bike. And so that means that, yeah, we're giving out fewer bags. We can take a number of lorries off the road. And for those runners in that Team Green cohort, there's an opportunity for us to really kind of focus on some of the messaging and kind of here's some other things you can do. We really encourage people in Team Green. We encourage everybody, but particularly there, we're encouraging them to carry their own hydration around there, or to wear a running vest, or to carry a bottle. We don't offer any bottled water in that start. It's all tap water. And it's just a way of, yeah, with a group that's rapidly growing, kind of saying, actually, this is what we think and what we would like the new normal to be. And in return, we're trying to elevate the experience for them. So the challenge is not to give out more stuff. You know, we don't want to kind of be giving things, but actually toilets. Toilets is the way to really give people something valuable, because anybody who's taken part in a mass participation sporting event will know that the toilet queues are legendary. So in the Team Green Star area, there's a higher toilet to participant ratio. There's also some seating, which is, again, you might think, well, kind of what's the big deal about that? But when you're waiting around to start a marathon, and there is quite a lot of waiting around, actually, you kind of want to be sat down, and, you know, the ground could be wet and muddy. And so yeah, putting in some seating is something that we've done there, so people can take the weight off their feet. We're offering teas and coffees to people, and yeah, depending on. I mean, last year it was super hot, so we didn't have much take up on that. But we did the same thing at Brighton Marathon a couple of weeks ago, and it was a cold morning, and people appreciated that. So yeah, it's finding ways to elevate that experience, and in return, being able to have that conversation with those runners and ask them to do a few small things that make a difference.
One of the things that is absolutely incredible is that the London Marathon has actually achieved Evergreen status, which is like the highest accolade that a sporting event can have when it comes to sustainability. And there are so many different aspects to that, which I'd love to get into in a little bit more detail. Because this isn't just about reducing water consumption, for example, or reducing plastic bottles, for example. It's also the social impact, how much money is raised for charity, the ongoing sort of legacy, procurement, et cetera, et cetera. So I was wondering if you could share the things that you're particularly proud of with the London Marathon that have helped contribute to get to that evergreen status.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so there's a lot in there. It's a pretty comprehensive assessment. So it's a certification that is awarded by the Council for Responsible Sport, which is a independent body based in the USA. And yeah, they're looking across, I think it's 5 different areas. So they're looking at like the leadership and the planning and the governance and the communication. So um, we do a lot on the comms, and I suppose the things that we do fall into kind of these different buckets. There's the things that we can organize as we can do as the organizers. So there's the actual measures that we put in place, and that could be having things like we've recently done a lot of work on accessibility and inclusion. Well, I say recently; it's been building up over the years, but having things like sensory calm tents, so that every one of our events, mass participation events are sensory overload. And for people that find that difficult, then we've now put spaces in where everybody can go and find some noise cancelling headphones, some bean bags, a kind of there's less stimulation. They are, as the name suggests, sensory quiet areas. Having things like accessible toilets for people with disabilities is something that is really, really appreciated. Offering feminine hygiene products, having spaces for women to breastfeed, places for families to be able to change a baby's nappy or to feed with some privacy and some dignity. All of those sorts of things have been introduced, which kind of make our events much more accessible and inclusive. And all of that kind of thing gets looked at by the Council for Responsible Sport. So yeah, and then there's kind of the communications around all those sorts of things. It's kind of how are we using our platform to not only say, well, look, here are the measures we put in place, whether that's water refill stations, whether it's those kind of prayer spaces, whether it's offering kind of guide runners for people with disabilities, but it's actually the way that we use our platform to go and talk more widely about that, not just, oh, here's what we put in place. It's actually, here are the issues that are facing people and preventing them from taking part in mass participation sport, or here are reasons, these are ways that you can help to address the environmental impact of you taking part in this event. So that was a real big part of it, was how we embedded this in the organization and communicated about it. And then, yeah, it sort of also looks at the whole community piece, and we've done loads of work in terms of trying to encourage a wider diversity of people to come and have a go and take part. And so whether that's offering reduced entry places across our events to community groups, working with community sports organizations. We're owned by a charitable foundation, so the London Marathon Foundation, all of the profits from the events go to the foundation, and that's a grant-making body, and that is awarding millions of pounds of grants every year to grassroots sport in deprived areas. So it's this kind of virtuous circle, hopefully, that we get people in to take part in the events. That generates income, which goes to the foundation, which goes to fund people taking part in sport, all kinds of sport. It isn't just about running, swimming, cycling. It's across every kind of sport, and that's the virtuous circle that we're trying to bring about. And at the same time, not trash the planet while we're doing all of that, because there's no point in having like massive positive social impact if at the same time you're causing incredible environmental damage.
God, and
Incredible.
I wonder if other events around the world are looking to the London Marathon as like, okay, here is the gold standard. Are you in contact with other huge event organisers to share notes, essentially?
Yeah, absolutely. There are all sorts of forums. It's a really generous, I think, industry, in that there's a lot of cooperation. Obviously, being sport, there's a bit of healthy rivalry as well, but I don't see the sort of the gatekeeping that I've seen in other areas or in other industries where it's a bit like, oh, we've come up with this really smart new way of tackling something, and we're going to keep that to ourselves for competitive advantage. So we're part of the Abbott World Marathon Majors, along with Boston, Tokyo, Berlin, Sydney, New York, and Chicago. And we have a forum, a sustainability leads forum, and we speak probably monthly as a group on what we're all doing. It's difficult to standardize because obviously every country has its own infrastructural differences and legislative differences, but where we've got ideas that have worked, then we're sharing those. So to give you a really good example, Sydney Marathon, which very recently became an Abbott World Marathon major, at the Sydney Marathon last year, they had a team of people who were plogging, and plogging is this running and picking up litter. So they had a team at the back of the marathon that were helping to pick up all of the gel wrappers that are all over the streets and a real nightmare to get off the road because they're sticky. And we learnt from them. I spoke to their sustainability lead, got a whole load of feedback from her, and we did a similar thing at Brighton Marathon 2 weeks ago, and it was a huge success. So, and something that we will be looking to do then at London. We can't, London and Brighton are only 2 weeks apart, so we have to we use Brighton a little bit as the test bed, and then a year later try and introduce things in London. So yeah, certainly something we are looking to explore for London. So yeah, it's a great forum to share.
Yeah, we can definitely find you a team of vloggers for London Marathon
Okay, it's
2027.
hard work. I warn you, it's hard work. You don't run the whole thing. You do like a 5K stretch of it because, yeah, believe me, the teams in Brighton were like, wow, that's a proper workout.
Well, my mind goes back to like PE, where you
Amazing.
had to, you're running around a sports hall and then a whistle would blow and you had to pick up a
Yeah,
beanbag or something. That is a core workout and a good mobility for the knees.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then carrying as well. So we've got all sorts of ways that we want to improve it. But yeah, it's a great one. And it's something that's happening now across most of the majors. So, for example, on Friday, we've got a community blogging event in London. All of the marathon majors are now introducing those. I know Paris did one a couple of weeks ago. They're regular occurrences in New York and Chicago. So, yeah, it's a growing trend.
Yeah. In terms of like, let's say somebody participating in their first ever marathon, which I think London probably does entice quite a few people in for. What do you think are the things that, if you're sort of stood on the start line, you can be looking out for that might be things that you've implemented or changes that have been made or things that you're really proud of? I know one of the things that always comes up naturally, as you just referenced, is unfortunately the amount of what looks to be plastic waste, but there's a lot more that goes into it than just, well, let's leave it there and hope
Yeah.
London can deal with it over the next couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
I mean, the waste is obviously the most visible thing. So we actually,
Yeah.
on our sustainability stand at the running show, we have a question on there which is asking people, what do you think the biggest impact of the marathon is? And it's kind of like, is it from the waste? Is it from the generators and vehicles that we're using to power it? Or is it from travel? And most people say waste. Actually, it's not. The biggest impact does come from the travel, and mostly that's to do with the amount of kind of international participants we have. So that's creating the most carbon emissions. But waste is obviously the most visible impact of it. And so if you're on the start line, I guess things that you will see this year we're really kind of upping. We're trying to do this every year. Is upping the number of water refill stations we have on the course, and there's tap water refill at the start and at the finish. So more and more people are choosing to run wearing a hydration vest with these kind of soft flasks in it, or carrying a handheld water bottle, or wearing a belt that you can stash a bottle in. And that means you can drink when you want to drink and not when we're kind of handing you bottles of water. We did a bit of an experiment a few years ago and gave people these bottle belts and to see what difference that made. And that cut bottle use by over 40% in terms of the 750 runners that use those. So we know that every year more and more people are choosing to carry their own hydration. So we're putting in those. We've got 5 refill points on the course this year, so people can stop and really quickly fill up their bottle, their flask, or whatever. So that's something you'll see. You'll see at mile 11, we've got a pop-up British Woodland this year, so just between mile 10 and 11. So to highlight the importance of nature and the fact that we are not separate from nature. So, okay, we're running around a city, but London is 51% blue and green space. London is a national park city. And we're working with the great team at London National Park City to kind of help raise awareness of that and to say, look, we depend as runners, walkers, active people taking part. Whether you do sport or not, we all depend on nature for the water we drink, the air we breathe, the kind of atmosphere we exist in. And so we're kind of using this as a small way of drawing attention to the value and the importance of nature, giving our participants a short stretch of calm with a nice a nature soundscape that's provided by WWF, an avenue of trees that they're running through. So yeah, that's something to look out for. And I think just as usual with all this, there are lots of bins out on the course. So if you're taking the plastic bottles, then please use the bins afterwards. I'd love to capture on camera that first person that drops the bottle and drops the gel. Because if you were out on your training run, I'd love to think, I really want to think that nobody would kind of throw their gel wrapper. Nobody would throw a bottle on the floor, right? But come event day, suddenly it's kind of open season. Let's just chat. Somebody else will clear it up. Who is the first person that does it? That then everyone thinks, oh, well, there's litter, so I'll drop it. So yeah, I think look out for those bins and use them. The bottles are all collected. They go back to our waste contractor, and they actually stay with our waste contractor till the end of September after all of our other events. And at the end of September, they all go to be recycled back into Buxton bottles. So they do get recycled, I promise you. But it makes everyone's life so much easier if they're in the bin to start with, rather than having to be picked up on the streets.
So I do a lot of trail running, and I've definitely had the situation where I need to dispose of a gel wrapper.
Yeah.
And I've done the thing where I've placed it very neatly by a bush, looked around to be like, don't worry guys, I will come back here when I've completed my run. And then at the end of the run, very ceremoniously picked up being like, see, I'm now going to go off and find a bin. But you're absolutely right. When you're not in a race environment, it feels sacrilege to just throw something over your shoulder. And then suddenly, the wraparound glasses come on race day, and lots of people behave totally differently. I guess the advantage being that at least it's a contained environment and there's that process. But yeah, we do funny things under pressure.
Definitely. Yeah. And look, I get it, there's sticky packets. I've been there too. It's kind of, you don't necessarily want those stuck to your shorts, all the rest of it. But there are, you can now get soft flasks that you can put refillable gels in. And I know that's probably not enough for the whole of the event, but there's, there are innovations coming onto the market. And who knows? We're kind of waiting for that day when the gel packaging itself, it becomes much more easily dealable with. It's not made of difficult plastics and that kind of thing. It's it is a real tricky one.
I remember being at the start line last year, though, as in the Green Runner start zone. And as you say, you kind of give little perks and little benefits, which I think is so smart, because genuinely, I think people will more likely go for the greener option if it also gives them, like you say, an extra loo, a little perk, maybe a little freebie, or is a little bit cheaper or whatever. I think a lot of people will make the choice to be green for the sake of being green, but there'll be some people who just simply want to go and run a marathon, and they see that they might get a free cup of tea by opting for this one, and so they'll go for it. And I think with running at the moment, that's an amazing opportunity, because it's having such a moment. There are so many more people interested in running now than there ever have been before. And so if we can kind of catch them early and dangle a few carrots of a few different ways of doing things. And I remember there was a few companies trialing various different incredible products, one of which was kind of like a mini protein flapjack, and it was coated in an edible waxy coating. I can't remember now, and I wish I'd
One
looked
good thing is
before
what they're
we
called.
came on here.
Yeah.
One good thing, is that right? Okay, of course you'd know, Kate. You
Yeah.
probably got them involved. But they were giving these free products away, and they were, like I say, coated in this waxy coating so that if you put it in a pocket or put it in a bag or put it in a pouch, it's not going to make a mess. It's not going to mark anything. You're not going to have crumbs, but you can eat the entire thing. It was so clever. So entirely
Yeah.
plastic free. And again, if that's your first marathon or if that's your kind of first intro into running and you see a product like that, and then that's your option over a gel. I'm not a pro runner, so I don't know what the difference is really. But what a brilliant way to introduce sort of products and companies and brands that are doing things slightly differently, and hopefully catch people early and show them that there are alternatives to these, like you say, really quite wasteful products.
Yeah, no, it's great, and there are more and more things like that coming onto the market, and there is that appetite for them. And one good thing, actually, they've got a stand at the running show, and yeah, they were doing brisk business yesterday. So yeah, it's really good to see that.
Good. And I think from memory, it was a
Yeah,
family-owned
yeah,
company as well, is it?
yeah,
It's like a father
exactly.
and
Yeah, they were
son.
developed. I
Yeah.
think the guy who developed them was a cyclist. So originally they were kind of pitching them at the cycling market,
Yeah.
but yeah, long distance. Or no, it doesn't even have to be long distance, but yeah, just across a range of sports, they're great. Yeah, would recommend.
So one of the things I was looking at in researching for this episode was the impact of weather. And there seems to be some debate that actually some races should start earlier to avoid really, really high temperatures. However, that may benefit men more than it may women. Has there been any kind of debate on that front and dealing with slightly more unpredictable weather in London?
Ooh, well, yeah, probably yes. There have been those debates going on. It's a really, really complicated issue for so many reasons. In that, yeah, you look at, and I'm aware of the report that you're referring to. So what you've got to think about is that we've got an elite race going on here, and then we've got the mass race. So the report that you're referring to was generally looking at elites, and they start. I mean, it's not that early. I suppose they're starting at 9:30. So the elite athlete, the wheelchair athletes start at about 8:30, and then the men's and women's elites are starting around 9:30 in the morning. Then the mass and the mass start sort of right behind them. It's really difficult to kind of start everything earlier because it's such a complex operation in terms of closing all the roads, getting everything set up, like having people in place across such a long time span. Already the finish line, we're kind of there till midnight for the last people to come in. And so shifting everything forward makes things so much more difficult. Trying to get people to the start line. You imagine kind of Transport for London is not geared up and to be able to kind of start running train services that much earlier to get people there that much earlier. It's incredibly complex. It's not as simple as just saying, let's just start an hour earlier. There's so many different moving parts that go into that. So look, I don't know. It's something that's definitely being closely watched. It is an issue. I mean, we're looking at those weather charts from as far out as we possibly can, and there are all sorts of plans depending on what we think the weather's going to be like. It affects so many decisions in terms of hydration, in terms of whether showers go out in the course, in terms of whether foil blankets are given out, what kind of medical. I mean, there's always obviously massive medical provision, but if we think it's going to be a really hot day, then obviously that all gets boosted and increased. So it's something that's being monitored incredibly closely. I think the forecast for Sunday is looking. It's probably a little warmer than most runners would want. It's about 17 degrees at the moment, but like last year we had 24 degrees, so that probably feels a bit like a
Manageable.
win, manageable. So yeah, I mean, I can't say that is what's going to happen. Yeah, but it's certainly something that is
Yeah.
being closely monitored.
I think typically as Brits anyway, obviously we are obsessed with the weather and it can be so extreme. Every year as a weather forecaster as well, you're sort of asked weeks, months out from people that are participating. And I think that that's the one thing with London that has varied so much, but that potentially has sort of planted the seed more so for keen runners that actually our climate is changing, because the fact that some of the warmest marathons on record have all kind of happened in the last decade. And like you say, last year was a very warm one. I was there even just as somebody trotting around reporting on it. It was hot. It was a struggle. And so actually, while it's obviously not ideal and it definitely poses more challenges to see these temperatures rising, it may well be the thing that makes people realize that stuff is changing, because, oh, well, hang on a minute, I ran the marathon 20 years ago and it was this, and now it's this, and it's very different. And naturally, as you reference, the emissions from the travel is actually the kind of, it's the secret largest for pretty much any of these events, isn't it, around the world? Like the travel. And interestingly, I got back from Africa actually yesterday. I've been on my holiday, and on our flight back into London, there was an elite athlete, and my husband Jake was like, "Oh my god, look who it is!" And there was the TCS, marathon team meeting them. Very cool. But for people who are getting the train from Manchester, they're going, what do you mean emissions are the biggest thing? But they're not seeing that elite side of things where participants are traveling from all over the world. And often in that sort of instance, offsetting is the option. But London Marathon are doing things differently in sort of actually removing some of that carbon from the atmosphere. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think this is something that can easily be rolled out across all global sporting events and absolutely
Yeah.
should.
Well, it's not just the elites. To be honest, I mean, there aren't that many elite athletes in the grand scheme of things. Where we've got 60,000 people lining up on Sunday. It's a very small number that are in the elite section. But we've got, I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but I'm going to say around, I think, between 15 and 17,000 international participants. Yeah, so those are people who they've either got in through the ballot, they may be running for charities and have got a totally place, or they've bought their place through a tour operator. So you can, they're quite expensive, but you can buy a whole kind of package and get an entry through a tour operator. And a lot of those are coming from the US. US and Mexico is lots of people coming from Mexico, and Taiwan is another really popular kind of country where a lot of people are coming to run London from. And there is a big carbon impact associated with them. So we charge all of those international, not the elites, because it's their job and we want them to come. But we apply a carbon levy to all of our international participants, and they will pay an extra £31, which goes into a fund that is then spent on carbon removal credits. And so those are a little bit different from offsets in that they are invested in projects that are incredibly tightly verified and show that carbon is being removed from the atmosphere. So offsets are paying for things to happen that should prevent carbon from being emitted in the future, but it doesn't do anything about the carbon that you just emitted by getting on that plane. So carbon removal credits are funding things like there's a thing called enhanced rock weathering, which it sounds crazy, but it's a type of rock that is crushed up and spread across soil, and it massively improves the carbon absorption of that soil. There's biochar, which does something similar to that. There's direct air capture, which those are kind of being built at the moment, but these kind of giant fans that are sucking carbon from the atmosphere. I mean, there are a variety of nature-based solutions and sort of human imagined technological solutions. But the carbon removal industry and credit is investing into all these technologies, which are finding and enhancing and scaling ways to remove carbon on a large scale from our atmosphere, which absolutely needs to happen. So we need to stop more being put in, but we also need to take carbon out of the atmosphere. So that's what we're trying to do through that carbon levy and the carbon removal credits.
One of the things that I've read about, or what that we hear quoted a lot, and I know that you were on a panel recently that sort of touched on the subject, is that sport is one of the most powerful marketing tools that we have at our disposal. But if you have this hugely powerful marketing tool, you have to ask, well, what's it powerful in the pursuit of? And I
Mm.
know that you've obviously worked for the London Marathon for a number of years, but prior to that, you were also involved in London 2012 and have worked with innumerate B Corps as well. What do you think the value of sport should be, and how should we be leveraging its marketing potential?
Wow, that's a big question. What do I think the value of sport should be? I mean, I think sport is so important to so many people. It's so integral. It's mostly it's kind of it's fun. That's the kind of I know obviously for a lot of people it's a lot more than fun. It's incredibly serious. It's their livelihood. It's their raison d'être. It's their whole, everything they're aspiring to in life. But I think sport is something, whether you're participating in it, whether you're a fan of it, whether you're following a team or a particular sport really closely. So many people come at sport from really different angles, but mostly it brings them some form of joy and happiness um and maybe for some people relaxation, but like away from the kind of, I don't know, I guess the troubles in the world and other things that are going on. It's a kind of a release for a lot of people in many different ways. So I think there is enormous power in there to connect with people and inspire people, uh, because we're looking at, in some cases, the pinnacle of human achievement. When you watch the Olympics and you see those incredible feats, or you
Mm,
watch any form of, yeah, I mean, professional sport, you're seeing people literally at the top of their game who have dedicated their lives to being the best at what they do. And that in itself is really inspiring. But
mm,
through something like mass participation, you're giving everybody that opportunity to buy into that. You see all the people that have trained, and I've been at the running show, talk to people of from all sorts of walks of life and with every kind of background, but they're all lining up on that start line on Sunday morning, and they've all got that same goal in mind. And whether they do that in 2 hours and 5 minutes or 10 hours and 5 minutes, they're all on that journey. And this is all sounding a bit kind of, I don't know, schmaltzy, but I'll get to the point. But I think it's sport has this unique, almost unique, maybe music and the arts to a certain extent as well, but this way of tapping into such a broad spectrum of people. And so just having that as a platform to sell more stuff, or to push messages that ultimately come back to bite us and make those human achievements less
mm,
likely because we're sicker or our planet's sicker and the air is not breathable and our bodies are poisoned and all that kind of
mm,
stuff. It seems crazy.
mm,
Whereas sport, has always, people try and keep politics out of sport, doesn't always work. But yeah, that platform to talk about things that affect all of us. I mean, I
mm,
go back to the Olympics, say like the Olympics is the only thing that we do as a human race that involves pretty much every nation on earth. I know there will always be a couple of exceptions, but there is no other endeavor that we have where so many nations on earth are involved in something collectively.
mm,
It's sport that does that. Even Eurovision doesn't
Mm.
come close to that, um, so I just think that, yeah, being able to use sport as that way to say, "Hey, this is really serious and this affects all of us, and here's what we can do about it." It's such an opportunity, and I don't think
mm.
we're using it enough. I think it's being hijacked to sell more things that we don't need.
And that's so interesting because the very nature of protecting it and sustaining it, literally making it something that we can continue to do, we can continue to run, we can continue to, participate or attend these sporting events. The very nature of that is that we have to do it in a way that we can continue to do it, as opposed to, just constantly looking at how do we enjoy it right now. It's how do we still enjoy this in the next 50, 100, 500 years. And so I think that messaging, particularly when people are at an all-time high and when their endorphins are there and when, sport is doing all the good things, to catch people in that moment and to really subtly spread that message, I think that's where the power is really there in sort of leveraging that momentum. But I think this is the wonderful thing. It's kind of like Wimbledon. Every year you see, kids picking up a tennis racket for the first time. And no doubt London Marathon is exactly the same. And people will watch it and then they'll go, I might do couch to 5K, and all of a sudden May, the sun is shining,
Yeah.
everybody's out running. It's a wonderful thing to witness. So do you have any advice, do you think, if you were to start again? It's hard because you've entered this well-oiled machine and you've kind of had to tweak things and make changes. And I think that's what a lot of people particularly people that work in sustainability are trying to do. They're not starting from scratch. They're trying to kind of backtrack and change things that have been worked for so many years. So if there's perhaps somebody that's thinking, okay, now I think I might want to start a local race or a community event or something, and they really are going from the basics, what do you have as kind of advice, particularly if they're trying to do it in a real sustainable way? Is there like a non-negotiable practice that you would advise?
There's a few things really. I would say choose who you work with really carefully. So look into who your suppliers are, ask questions of them, make it really well known from the outset that you care about sustainability, social impact, environmental impact, that is important to you, and that's the backbone of what you're building your event around. And it can be, it can be commercial too. I mean, we've all got to live, and so I'm not naive. We live in a commercial world, and so, but I think there is a wide choice of suppliers out there in everything from, who you're getting your event toilets from, who's doing your event catering, who's doing your, generators and power and that kind of thing, and ask the right questions of them. What are you doing to reduce your carbon footprint? How are you supporting the local community? What are your kind of employment practices, that kind of thing? Just kind of asking those questions and building an event around a group of suppliers that buy into your ethos, I think is really important. And then I think, yeah, going out and using the platform that you've got. So um, you can make those decisions as an event organizer and say, well, I'm not necessarily going to give out finish a t-shirt. Actually, what could we reward people with that isn't going to cause an environmental problem? And there's a really nice event near where I live in Dorset where, they give, I mean, okay, it's a Christmas, but they give out a Christmas pudding. It's a Christmas pudding 10K. But there are other events that might give out like slate coasters, for example. And Imogen, if you do trail running, you'll know that most trail runs, they wouldn't give out a finished a t-shirt. They may not give out anything at all. You may not even get a medal, but it's, you don't necessarily need to follow the kind of the tried and tested route that maybe some of the bigger events have gone into, and then we've backed ourselves into corners with. Once upon a time, every event you would get a goodie bag at the end of it that would be full of sponsor products and samples, and most of them people would go rummage through and go, oh, I just want this one thing, and everything else is going to go in the bin. And those are largely a thing of the past now. So I think just, critically appraise everything that you're giving out and go, do we really need to give this out? Or could we actually uplift the experience? Could we offer massages at the finish? Could we provide better food and a kind of a food item at the end? Could we do a kind of really great photo opportunity and a selfie wall or whatever that might be? And involve community groups is the other thing I would say. We work with a massive range of community groups across all of our events, and unfailingly, it makes the event a better experience for everybody. And whether that's, community groups providing music along the route, whether they're helping serve teas and coffees, whether they're like the plogging group, that was all local communities, whether they're helping clean up the route. Yeah, in whatever way you can, the communities in the area that you're running that event or organizing that event will know what works in that community, and unfailingly will make it a better experience.
I don't think anybody's ever finished a marathon and said, the goodie bag was great, but, loads of people, particularly after London, go, the atmosphere, the vibe, the music, the energy, that's what really matters on the
Exactly.
day,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's
I
the
was just going to say, from a personal perspective, I think the various races that I've done, the three things that have got me round are, number one, especially on trail races where they give you just the best flapjack in the whole world. And actually that flapjack probably could be terrible, but in that moment,
yeah,
it's like the best thing you've ever had in your whole entire life. The second thing, any community choir is like, I think it shaves off minutes from your time, the sort of power of that energy. And then any kids who have the little cardboard signs that say
yeah,
press here to power up, and like they love it when you hit their
yeah,
cardboard. And it just, those are the things that genuinely make an impact to how the race feels on the day. It's
yeah.
extraordinary, the joy that unlocks.
Absolutely, and they're all kind of, they're all really wholesome things. They're like little
Yeah.
cardboard signs, hand-painted signs. They might be a homemade flapjack and a community choir, and you kind of go for all of that marketing spend, right? You think all of the money that's invested, and while I appreciate that that also unlocks and does great things as well, actually what people remember are those largely, maybe it's the homemade costume, it's the handmade signs, it's all of those things that bring it down to a really community, personal, human level. And yeah, that's the power of it.
So I guess the
Mm.
last question, or maybe this is the penultimate question, we'll see. This is probably the peak of the year that is arriving on Sunday. Next week, have you got some annual leave? Are you able to relax just for a moment? What does the next few weeks look like for you?
Um, yeah, so next week, a slightly quieter week, hopefully. Yeah, a bit of a recovery day on Monday. And then, yeah, well, we've got our event year is kind of split into two chunks mainly. There's the spring season, which is Bath Half, Brighton Marathon weekend, and then the London Marathon. And don't forget, we have a mini marathon on Saturday with 20,000 children. So just saying, it's kind of, there's another big event happening on Saturday, which is amazing and also incredible to witness. Um, but then we have a whole range of events in the autumn. So yeah, the focus starts switching then to kind of gearing up for the events in September and October. We have a few smaller events over the summer. We've got a 5K in the city, a corporate 5K. We've got some community events that we're involved with that we help to organise. So, but it's kind of, we get a little bit of a lull and a time to kind of step back and go, okay, what have we just learned from those three events? What worked, what didn't? What are we going to carry over into the autumn events? What do we need to put in place for next year? And also, it's the opportunity in the summer to kind of do some of that more strategic thinking
Mm.
about, where are we going in our whole program, and what do we need to, what comes next. So yeah, get out of the detail and kind of head up and think a bit more
Big
widely.
picture. Mm.
Yeah,
And hopefully a
yeah, that would
holiday
be
at some
nice.
point.
Yes, I think July is holiday time.
We have
Great.
one last question that we always, it throws everybody. But Abby, do you want to take it away?
Yes, this is the final question that we ask all of our Green Queens guests. And it is, what is the last thing that you did with the environment in mind? It can be small, it can be big. It's just, what was the last decision that you made that was environmentally focused?
Yeah. The last decision I made that was environmentally focused. Yeah,
And it
Throws
can be as
people every
simple as
time.
you walked somewhere.
yeah. It probably was exactly that. I was, needing to get out here yesterday. Well, no, I always would have taken public transport, so that's a okay. I'll tell you what it was. It was probably in Brighton a couple of weekends ago. Just using the barrel bikes everywhere in Brighton rather than get an Uber, because it's event weekends. We would all tend to walk 30 to 40,000 steps of a day on an event day. And yeah, I needed to get around different bits of Brighton on the day before the marathon. So when the roads were more open, but I did go, no, I'm going to use a barrel bike because I want to actually see Brighton, and I don't want to get in an Uber. So yeah, it would have been that.
Oh, that is a
Love
perfect
that.
answer. Um, Well, honestly, thank you so much for carving out this time in what is an extremely busy week. It's been absolutely incredible to hear about the amazing work that the London Marathon is doing. And if no one has ever been to see it before or participated before, the joy is just unmatched. So yeah, do head down to London if you can at some point in the future.
Yeah, I would very much recommend it. If you want to restore your faith in humanity and what we're all capable of, then yeah, come and fill up, power up at the London Marathon or any mass participation event. If you're not near London and you can get to one, it was Manchester Marathon last weekend, or go to the Great North Run, or go spectate, go cheer, go get inspired, maybe go and enter one. But it will, I promise you, it will restore your faith in humanity.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Green Queens. If you did and you'd like to hear more, we'd be so very grateful if you could like,
subscribe and join the Green group chat for weekly episodes.